Today on the series of Gear Aid 4, also known as Gear Dungeon Guides I have been doing, we are going to be covering Stage 6. So Stage 6 is probably the hardest stage in the entire game. It's very hero dependent, especially on two specific units, which I will go over in a second. And also gear requirement, timing, etc., is all difficult. But I'm going to be showing you guys the cookie cutter, normal, intended way to beat this, and just going over everything that you need to know. Also, this strategy, even with some changes, will work on every earlier stage as well. So as long as you have a couple of these units, or at least some units similar, you're going to be able to do that just fine. Also, if you guys want a 1 to 4 guide at all, I can definitely do that for you guys. Either like a low gear requirement or a low hero requirement, like epic only or something. I could try to make that work for you guys. But just comment down below if you would like to see one of those. But for now, we're going to be going over Stage 6. So Stage 6, you need one of two units, and those two units are Valkyria and Comet. They're both very, very important. Ideally, if you have both, then you're going to have an easy time on the stage. This is the team we're going to be using. If you don't have Valkyria, there are ways to do it with just Comet. If you don't have Comet, there are ways to do it with just Valkyria. But Valkyria is probably the most important hero in the game for this one specific stage. She's so important because she basically solo DPSs the entire top half of the stage and it validates the entire thing. If you saw my last video, you know how terrible it is to deal with the top. She just says, nah, screw that, and then absolutely deletes everything. But the team that we have here, let's just go over it all really quickly. We have the 3 tanks. You only actually need 2 tanks. You need 1 Lord bonus for Valkyria, so she gets her shields up. So she gets a shield from the Lord bonus, and then that will allow her to have her ult triggered. Because if you don't know how she works, when you trigger her ult, if she has a shield, she gains 1 attack range. Her attack range is so important. So that's why we have that. Next, we have Olog and Brokir. We have 1 free slot. You only really need 9 units for this. So because I figured we might need it, I put in another tank because the Solde kept dying and messing up my recordings, and it was very annoying. So I just slotted 1 in. You could take out Brokir, for example, replace it with something else, or just leave it empty and you would still be able to beat it. But I just find this way to be the easiest. Also, one of the tanks will be placed at the end in case I need them as kind of a safety net. I will show in a second. Dolores, Vortex, and Valkyria will all deal with the top. Vortex is just there to give Valkyria some shields and also keep her alive, and then Dolores is there to boost Valkyria damage, kind of help with her damage because she can't deal with it on her own in stage 6. Next up, we got Raiden, who is purely for buffing Comet. You just need to use whatever Lord you have for your DPS. You could do this with, instead of Comet and Artemis, or Lasir, for example, any anti-healer works. Instead, you could swap it to Vierna and Greed, and that will do just fine. But I'm sure you can find a guide out there, at least pretty soon, on that strategy. Elowen is there for heals. Global Rage Regen is her main usage, and then she's also just going to be healing. You could use Hollow instead, but she just gives Rage Regen to Dolores and Valkyria, who wouldn't actually be in Hollow range. So that's why I like having her. And then once again, our anti-healer and then our DPS. So let's get into it. I'll show the gear at the end. The gear isn't bad. It's actually amazing, but this is more of a demonstration than a min-maxing how bad can our account be to beat this. This is just a guide. But anyways, so some things to note is you want to place your DPS and then your support who will have Invig. You need Invig. It's like incredibly important, and in order to guarantee it goes on your DPS, and then you need to place your tank immediately when you get the cost, because the boss will always attack either your last place unit or any tank that is down, prioritizing the last place tank. So you really need to place a tank so that your units don't die at the beginning. But it's the beginning, so the timing isn't too crazy. Next, we're going to place Artemis, or you could use Lasir, etc., like I said, just to build up their ults for this wave. Also, make sure you have a Bastion Ring on your tanks in order for them to survive. Or I'm not survive, to block everyone. And then, when you're ready, you're just going to trigger all the ults. and get that part done. You always have to be watching the bottom to make sure that no one is about to die. It's very, very important. The second a tank dies, you lose the entire thing. So it's very, very important that you are mindful of that. Here we're gonna trigger our ults. Also, as you saw, we put Vortex up there, and he's gonna be great, just hanging out. And then we're gonna be placing Valkyria right after. So Valkyria, we're gonna wait for her to kind of get a shield up, or at least close to a shield. I'm not sure how she works, but I swear there's like a way she gets a shield. I'm not sure. You basically, you always need to ult when she has a shield up. I'm not sure why she's not getting a shield. Oh, because Vortex puts out passive shields, and she didn't get it my last run. I lost a run because of that. That's why I'm watching it like that. But yeah, so as long as she has a shield, you're going to trigger her ult, and then you also got to trigger Dolores as soon as she's ready, and you're trying to kill the wave. As soon as that wave dies immediately, or at least before it reaches Valk, you're a-okay to go for the rest of the fight. But this might be a dead run because we're unable to kill them. So let me just reset, get back here, and we're actually going to kill those guys because Vortex is instead going to put his ult up on Valk this time. So let me just go to there. Alright, I'm back roughly to where we are. I'm about to place Valk, and this time hopefully it'll go a little bit better. Though this time I will just be placing her and then waiting for her to get her shield. I'm not sure if it makes a big difference, but Dolores got the shield that Vortex puts out earlier, so that's why I waited. This time though, I actually placed Vortex as soon as he was ready, so that's why she has it already. So make sure to place Vortex earlier than I placed him, like as soon as you get the cost for him after kind of setting up your bottom defense. Then we're going to trigger Valk ult, obviously, and she's going to deal with the top, although we do need Dolores ult soon. And now we're going to look at the bottom. So the bottom is very, very important because the second the tanks die, you lose, right? So we need to trigger our ults and keep everyone alive as best we can while we wait for the DPS ults to be up. Make sure to Dolores ult up there when you can. We're going to trigger Artemis, we're going to trigger Comet, and now hopefully they will deal with the bottom, and then Valk will deal with the top, just barely. There we go. Your gear has to be pretty good on Valk. Obviously, there's other ways you could set it up. If you have a legendary lord for her, that's ideal. And yeah, it just, as long as you have a beefy Valk, it'll be fine. Now hopefully she'll get her next ult and we could trigger it soon. I will Vortex ult to give her a shield, just so that we're not wasting time, because as you saw, a little bit of a late ult means a loss, so it could be a little bit tough. Now we're gonna trigger Dolores ult right here. You could put Tumultuous Horn if you're struggling for the first wave, but I'm not sure how big of a difference it makes. So just keep that in mind. She's gonna deal with that just fine. She's gonna deal with these guys, and we're gonna be a-okay. And now we're gonna put our attention to the bottom, and we're gonna deal with this part as well. Now we're gonna Artemis, we're going to Comet, and we're going to hope that we can get enough damage out. Trigger Procure ult so they don't die. And then at the top, Valk is kind of struggling to get her rage. That's the one issue with using Valk, but as long as we can kill this wave, I'm confident we can deal with the rest. Here we're going to have Vortex ult for Valk right here, so we're gonna be a-okay. Trigger instant Dolores ult, and hopefully she will be all right. As you can see, she's doing ridiculous amounts of damage. If your Valk doesn't do that much damage, it should hopefully be fine. I know you can use constants back here or something as well if you're using a different setup over here, but that's stuff that you should be looking up a different video for. This is more the run-of-the-mill stuff. But we're just gonna trigger everything down here, keep them alive. Our ults are kind of stilted or stalled out, so we're going to need to wait for those to come up. The good thing about Eloin though is we could drop a sprite if we're low on healing, and hopefully we'll be okay. As you can see, going okay. And on the top, it's not going as well, but I do have a strategy to deal with this. As you can see, Isolde is still on cooldown. We still have her. So all we got to do up top, because as you see, Valk is very late. If they kill her, as long as we're able to kill the front section, then we're going to be able to stall Isolde right here. She'll be in Elowen's healing radius, and we could stall there forever because they don't deal enough damage to kill our tank. And then we could just pull Artemis and Comet once they're done with this wave, and then they'll be able to kill these last units since this is the last wave. So that's just a way to deal with that. It's what I used Regulus for before when I was using Hars as well, because Hars could actually deal with the bottom, but whatever. That's not so important. Now we're going to wait for kind of a shield on Valk. Barely a shield. It's going to do a lot less damage now. But as long as she can kill one group, boom, we're good. We're solid. Also, because we killed the entire bottom, now we can pull these two. We can pull whoever we want. And now we can place down our tank there and hope that maybe we'll be okay. If Isolde is not tanky enough, we might lose here. I'm not sure. It depends on how much Elowen can heal. I used Regulus here before, and Regulus was built incredibly well. But hopefully we'll be okay. As you can see, Isolde is holding her own, but we will end up losing eventually, as long as we cycle everything, like our Sprite, our alts, etc., we're gonna be a-okay. And hopefully we'll have Rokir soon to be placed down as well. If you just use a better tank, you'll be fine. If you build people, because no one really has any Guardian sets. If you just build people differently, you'll be fine. Here I'll put Brokir here, Valk, just in case. And then we are going to put down Comet. We're going to put down Artemis. And now as soon as we get Artemis and Comet ults, we're going to be fine. We're going to win. And that's going to be the end of the stage. So this is just how you beat it. Obviously the gear requirement is pretty high. If you time things better and you have like some better builds, better strategy, etc., you could probably do it differently. But this is just the best way to do it. I'll show the gear in a second. Gear's pretty good though. But yeah, so that's the stage. That's all you got to do. It works for lower stages as long as you have some gear that's similar. And GG. This is not good enough, so let me solve that. Let's go over the gear now. But yeah, so that's how you beat the stage. Valk clears the tops just fine. Comet clears the bottom. Once again, Bjarna works fine instead of Comet, but you do need to bring like Greed instead. Though Isolde has a pretty random stat over set type thing over here. As you can see, like it's not bad at all, but it's not Guardian. You could have far worse stats on a Guardian set. You just need a Bastion rig. Next, we have Olog. He's in a Guardian set, although it's kind of bad for him because we have defense bonus. Because I had this on Regulus before and I swapped it just so I didn't use a bunch of legendaries in terms of tanks. But he has Bastion Ring as well. You want to have Bastion Ring on everyone. And then over here, we got Brokir. He's not even max skilled, even though he deserves it. And he has a lot of HP, lots of defense, really good stats, but not a set. So you can compensate like that. And then a Bastion Ring, once again. Vortex. This Vortex could use a lot of work, but luckily Vortex does not need to be very good. He has way too much healing effect, not enough HP, not enough attack speed. You could obviously refine this, but it's fine the way it is. This is like the worst artifact for him. But you could put a Euphoric Orb on him to try to help Valk out a little bit. And then we have Valkyria. Valkyria's gear is pretty good. She's also not skilled, so you can make up some damage from skills. You can make up some damage here. And if you have her exclusive, that's a way to get more damage too. Her gear is pretty good though. I think if you put more attack and less crit damage, you should be able to do it. Or maybe some more attack speed too. But this is some really good stuff. I took it from the Zilla too. She's also A3, which is not required in any way, shape, or form, but it does help. But as you could see earlier, even with a sliver of shield, which you could obviously refine to make it more shield, by buffing Vortex, for example, because our Vortex is kind of ass, you'll make up that damage anyways, so that's not really a big deal. Raiden doesn't get placed, his gear doesn't matter. Elowen, you just need Invig and to make sure that she can actually heal. As you see, her attack is very low, so you could definitely make that better. We have Euphoric Orb, but it's a very low level one. A higher one will do a lot better. Then Comet has a Comet has an insane gear set, let's be honest. But if you refine Artemis, who we'll get to in a second, you can make this far worse. because Artemis or Lasir, whoever you're using, will do more damage. Also, this has too much reliance on crit damage, so if you put more attack into him, he'll need less stats. Then we got Tear of Twilight plus 25. You want to max Tear of Twilight. Once again, this is whale endgame, endgame, endgame territory. You need this type of gear in order to beat it. There's no workaround at all, so you can't really complain about the gear or the awakenings or anything. You can complain about the awakenings, I get that, but you can still do it without them. They're not that impactful. Artemis, his attack speed is low, his crit rate is not high enough, and his rage regen is low. His attack is pretty high, but you could refine your Artemis quite a bit. Artemis isn't even really skilled. This skill is really good, you know, all this stuff. But the main thing you need is you need this effect duration. 100% needed. Golden Scarab is best in slot for him. And then Dolores, you need Invig. This is a really good Dolores, but yeah, that's all it is. And that's how you beat the hardest stage in the game. If you guys want to see maybe a less gear requirement or one with Vierna instead of Comet or something else instead of Valkyria, I could try to do that. I know there's some very good content creators who have some guides on that, so if you go look it up, I'm sure you can find some great ones. But I hope this was helpful for you guys. This took me about 2 hours to film because I kept messing up and I tried doing it in one take and it didn't work. So if you would like to like and subscribe and whatever, I feel like I'm plugging it too much, so I might stop for a little while. But it really is the best way to support me and best way to do that. I will be doing viewer summons later today if you're interested. I know it's a bit too late, but actually, I think by the time this releases, it'll be like when I'm doing viewer summons, so maybe scratch that. But anyways, that's about it for me. Hope this helped, and Destined signing out.